Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, the Ted Lasso of talk radio. And my most Ted Lasso-y guest is Jim Talent. The former senator from Missouri does put an emphasis on kindness, graciousness, and not losing his temper. He's like Ted Lasso. Hello, Senator. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I don't know if you intended it as one, but
Oh, I do. I call myself the Ted Lasso of talk radio because I always try and stay kind, courteous, and observant of everyone and trying to be gracious to them. But I'm mad at Alvin Bragg. And that's what I think. I think Ted's going to go off at some point in this season, which they've worked hard to make R-rated, which is unfortunate. What do you make? You're a fine lawyer. What do you make of what D.A. Bragg did?
Well, it's a sign. It's evidence of the collapse of the prosecutorial function in many of our cities. I mean, as you know, the basic function of a prosecutor is to prosecute the guilty and protect the innocent, right? And what these prosecutors are doing is prosecuting the innocent and protecting the guilty. And as a result, crime, of course, is surging in New York. And I have to say, this is a terrible injustice to Trump. He's going to get exonerated at some point, right? I mean, the odds on that are very high. But there are lives being shattered in New York every day because of Alvin Bragg, and we're not going to be able to put those back together again.
Well observed. By the way, they're spending an enormous amount of money and prosecutorial bandwidth on a nonsense case. Now, yes. Jim, the Sixth Amendment guarantees every defendant in every courtroom, and that is a criminal courtroom, that they be informed of the charges against them. It is basic. It is foundational. I waited and waited and waited to see the indictment and the statement of facts, and I know what all the misdemeanors or previous misdemeanors were. It's not news. 34 of them, it's the same set of facts. But the bootstrapping element, the underlying felony that resurrects the statute of limitations barred misdemeanor isn't there. Have you seen anyone from the left defend this indictment?
No. And even my friends that I talk to, well, part of the difficulty is they don't understand it. Now, we're dealing here with a prosecutor who doesn't believe in the norms of the institution that he's supposed to represent, right? In other words, he thinks that the criminals are the victims of an unjust system, right? And that the rest of us are the ones who are victimizing them, okay? Now, on top of that, he's also incompetent. So he waits 6 years to bring a case, allows the statute to run, and then brings a case that even his political allies are looking at and are cringing over, right? So we have a combination here, a lack of faithfulness and also a lack of competence. And by the way, that's heavily represented. We have the same problem in St. Louis City here.
I didn't know. Do you have a Soros prosecutor there?
Kim Gardner, yeah, and the Attorney General. We don't have a system in Missouri where the governor can remove a prosecutor. So the state Attorney General here has filed a quo warranto against her, which is really not the right vehicle for, the courts are going to decide whether it can be used for those purposes. But we have people drag racing in major arteries in the city of St. Louis. I mean, it's just, I don't want to hijack your interview, but this is a problem all over the country, and it's manifesting.
A young tech entrepreneur was stabbed to death. 43-year-old brilliant guy helped founded Square in San Francisco, stabbed to death 2 nights ago. And every day near Capitol Hill, there's a carjacking. Not every day, but often. The collapse of law and order. And now we've elected a quote, progressive in Chicago. And again, it's usually because of the money. It's usually because the public employee unions want a lefty who will give them better pension benefits. That's usually what's driving these elections.
Right. And I think another problem in the cities is that people feel like, and I understand why they feel it, voters feel like, look, it doesn't make any difference who we vote for, because we pretty much get the same thing all the time. And so they don't turn out. I mean, these are very low turnout elections relative to the importance of them. There's a cynicism about the process, which is understandable. I mean, you look at this prosecution of Trump and everybody knows this is a joke. And so why go to the polls? So it's a number of things, but eventually there's going to be electoral consequences, and that's when it will stop. You and I have
Let me ask you about those electoral consequences. I think it's too early for me to have any opinion on the Republican nomination, but do you think the indictment of the former president sufficiently energizes Republicans upset with the double standard that it discourages other people from entering the race beyond Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy?
Oh, no, I really don't, Hugh. I mean, we have a long way to go in the primary process. And I'll tell you, it's until we have the other candidates in the field, and I think those who are planning to run are not going to be deterred by this. We have an opportunity to see them in debates, and Republican voters can judge. I wouldn't draw any inferences. I'm getting some calls of people who are asking me that question. I don't think this is going to affect that. I do think people are rallying around Donald Trump now, and they should, because if this is an unjust prosecution, at best the process is going to be the punishment for him. In other words, I think he's going to get exonerated, but it should never have been brought. And it's
No,
just another example.
it's a it is a horrific stain on the rule of law, and I expect the left to step up at some point and admit that. Jim Talent on Twitter from the Bipartisan Policy Center. Thank you, Senator. Happy Easter to you, and I'll talk to you next week.